A digital detox is a great way for your family to start a new chapter and take control of the screens and technology in your home. Our family has done several digital detoxes and we absolutely loved the results, but they can be daunting, even difficult, especially if you don't prepare properly. So today I'm going to share with you 4 tips that are going to make your detox easier, more successful, and maybe even enjoyable. So a digital detox is a lot like a diet, and I'm going to run with this analogy because it's a good one. But when you start a diet, you can't just wake up one day and decide you're going to diet. So my first tip is to get motivated and make a plan. When I say get motivated, I mean you want to put some positive goals in place that are really going to set you on the right path. Whenever you focus on the negative, you're never going to succeed. When you diet, you don't simply focus on, oh, I'm so fat. Oh, I need to get rid of this weight. Focus only on the calorie counting. The same goes for your digital detox. You don't want to focus just on taking screens away and what you're not going to have. You want to think about the positive aspects for your family. And the best way to do this, I find, is by taking advantage of all the studies and literature that's come out lately that shows how many benefits come from controlling your screen time and technology. So I'm going to link down below some free podcasts, documentaries, and books that I love and that I think are going to motivate you. During this past week, my family did a week-long digital detox, our family of 9, and I was reading the book, The Opt-Out Family by Erin Lochner. Absolutely loved it. Erin Lochner is a former influencer and her husband was an employee for Apple, so she really knows what she's talking about. And her goal during the book was to take these strategies that big tech companies use to keep you hooked on technology, to keep you hooked on screens, and to apply them to home life. And she really does a good job of this. I found it very inspiring. And the next thing that you're going to do, the next part of this step, is of course make a plan. So you want to sit down with your spouse and possibly older children if you have them and really work out how you're going to do this detox. What is this detox going to entail? What are you going to take away? And I have a couple small tips here for you. First off, I've heard some people say, oh my goodness, my spouse or my children would never cooperate with this. Firstly, you need to give them a chance and approach the matter respectfully. Tell them why you want to do this detox. And maybe your spouse especially isn't really convinced that screens are a big problem for your family. I know this happens a lot, but they may see the benefits of the detox and decide to join in. At the very least, I think most people of goodwill are going to try and not sabotage your detox. As for your older children, definitely try to put it in a positive context. Erin Lochner really suggests that when you do this, you do it before you do something fun or while you're doing something fun, like going out to eat or having takeout food, so that it puts an even more positive spin on things. And the second thing I want to say is when you're doing the actual detox, what I kind of like to do is take out as much as I can, not what's necessarily your baseline or what you're going to aim for. And then after that short period of taking everything out, like I said, this is like a diet, like a detox diet almost, you can add back in what you think is going to be beneficial for your family. And this is going to be different for everyone, of course. So during this past week, our detox goal was to cut down on our computer and movie time. We had somehow let afternoon TV creep in and become a big part of our day and even our evening. And I could really see the bad effects in my kids. They were getting whiny, frustrated, had shorter attention spans. They weren't playing well. As for myself, I had the goal of cutting back on my smartphone time and not using it in the morning. I could see myself being distracted and just resorting to my smartphone as an easy means of recreation instead of engaging with my kids, instead of reading, instead of doing more important things that needed to be done. So when taking things out, going back to the diet analogy, I like to think of screen time, technology use like white sugar in our diets. We all know that white sugar isn't good for us. Ever since it was first introduced 400 or 500 years ago, people have been having more and more health issues. But it doesn't really cause major issues if you have it occasionally here and there for dessert and, birthdays, parties, whatever. But when it becomes a major part of your day, a major part of your diet, that's when you start seeing the big issues. And to go even further with that analogy, I would say that social media and overuse of smartphones is like the high fructose corn syrup. Ever since those have been introduced, we've really seen a skyrocketing of all these social and mental health issues. So kind of take that into consideration when you're deciding what you're going to detox from. And when your detox is over, you can decide what you want to add back in, what you want your family's interaction with screens to look like normally. So for us, over the years, we've kind of come up with a plan. We have one smartphone in the house. I primarily use it, especially for this YouTube channel. We have a flip phone that my husband and the kids use all the time. Sometimes I use it when we go places. We have a computer and laptops, but those are always in open areas and they are password protected. And we have internet filters for all those devices as well as the phone. We really tried to limit our television and recreational computer use, and we've decided not to include video games in our family's recreation. So I suggest come up with a plan that works for your family. Definitely get your spouse's agreement and at least try to get your older kids to agree. Give them good reasons why you are doing this, even if they aren't necessarily happy about it. As far as younger children, I really don't think a lot of explanation is necessary. You just have to decide to be really firm and to keep everything black and white. If you say there's not going to be any computer time this week, stick to it. Don't be all wishy-washy and confuse them. So step 2, same with a diet. You're going to get all the junk food out of the house. Step 2 is to put barriers up around the technology that you have decided to limit or not use. So if you're going to limit video games, put away the gaming console. If you're going to limit TV, lock up the remotes or put the TV away. Lock up any devices that you are planning not to use. With smartphones, this one's a bit more difficult. Over the years, I have gone for extended periods without my smartphone, but now I do need it for this YouTube channel. I've really found that I can't go without it for long periods of time. And I think that's true for a lot of people. But there are ways that you can really limit your smartphone use and detox off of that while using it more responsibly. One that I like to do is I go and put the phone in another room that's kind of at the other end of the house, or I'll even lock it in a car in the driveway. That way I'm adding a step to having to get my phone, and I have certain designated parts of the day where I'm not going to have the phone. Just turning it on do not disturb really doesn't work. They've actually done studies showing that people are still bothered and they're still focusing on their phone when it's just in the room. You really need to remove it from your room to totally get it out of your head. One of my goals with this challenge, with this detox, was to cut back on my smartphone use, and I really wanted to stop using it in the mornings. I find that if I get on my phone first thing in the morning, it really can ruin my day. I don't get my spiritual reading in. I don't get the chores done that really should be done earlier in the morning. I don't do the things that make the day go smoothly with my children, like getting their breakfast ready or making their chore charts or just seeing what needs to be done around the house. So if anything, maybe try to keep your phone out of the house or out of reach during those morning hours. Plan ahead. Tell people who might try to reach you on the phone that you will be available only on your home phone. If you're going to be cooking or need some type of tutorial, try printing it off or having it prepared ahead of time so you don't have to run to your phone to look at things. If you do need to look something up, generally we always have a computer or a laptop. It's amazing how I will put my phone away for a few hours at the beginning of a detox and imagine that I must have all these texts and messages and things that just can't go without my attention. And then I come back and find that really nothing has happened and the messages and texts I've received could have waited a few more hours. Another great tip that I used this time, something Aaron Lochner suggests, was to actually put your phone on nighttime mode during the day. Something about having your phone black and white takes away a lot of the excitement of just browsing and scrolling on your phone. Of course, you can remove any social media apps, anything that's going to send constant notifications. And something I have not tried yet, but I want to look into, is putting parental controls on my phone so that I only have certain amounts of time allowed on social media or other types of time-wasting sites. The third thing that you need to do is probably the most important on a practical level. Before I get to that though, please let me know if you're getting any kind of value from this video. It differs a little bit from my normal content, and I want to know if you want to see more content like this. So step number 3 is to plan positive activities to take the place of the technology in your family's life. Now, this can sound really tiring and daunting, especially if your family is super addicted to screens. But I promise you, it's actually just something you have to do short term. Back to the diet analogy, if you are cutting sugar out of your life, you will notice that you have terrible cravings for the first few days, possibly the first week if you were super addicted to sugar. But it goes away, your brain actually resets and rewires, and your palate readjusts and other things start tasting good. The same goes with technology. You actually learn to enjoy other things besides the constant dopamine rush that you get from screens and technology. When we have done longer detoxes, we actually do a detox every spring for 6 weeks during the Lent season. I sometimes will choose a hobby that is good for my kids to work on and invest in some fun stuff that they can work on during that longer period of time. This past detox was only a week, so I planned some fun afternoon and evening activities for my younger kids. For older kids, it can be a bit more difficult. For my older children, I simply planned social events and let them hang out with their friends. If your children have friends who own smartphones though, and you want them to be off their smartphones, I know this can be hard. And my best suggestion is to plan social activities at your house that are low tech or no tech. It's really interesting because when you read studies and people have actually talked to teenagers, most of them actually would like to go without their smartphones, but they just don't know how, and they feel like they're going to be weird or strange, but they really know that it's not doing them any good and that they would be much happier without it. So back to little kids though, I think they're the easiest to plan activities for. During this digital detox, well, first off, we all went to the library and everybody checked out their favorite books. I checked out some for myself, so I wasn't tempted to scroll. Agatha Christie, my comfort food of books. And even if you think my kids don't read, I promise you when they get bored, they probably will start reading. That's one of the great effects of the detox. During the afternoons that week, I planned a few budget-friendly activities. One day we made cookies together. Another day we made homemade Play-Doh, and I got the cookie cutters out so they could play with that. Another day we went to a nearby museum. We went to a couple of parks, but really the kids do figure out how to entertain themselves once the screens are gone. It takes a little bit. Don't have this vision in your mind that you're going to have to spend several weeks sitting on the floor with your toddler reading stories and playing with blocks. In the evenings, I picked up a couple of games at our local thrift store. We learned how to play them, and the fun thing was once I explained the rules to them, later on during the day, they would actually just get these games out and play them by themselves. Definitely plan some activities, have some things on hand that your kids can just go to when they are bored, some things you can point out when they ask you what to do. Also, if my kids were engaged in some type of activity, even if it was time for lunch or chore time, if I could avoid it, I didn't break their concentration. I just wanted to let them enjoy that time and keep occupied, and we just were a lot more easygoing with our day. So step number 4 might seem a little bit obvious, but I think it's really important to say, and that is know that you're doing a good thing for your family. Really know it. Even though there is so much information out there now, people are starting to wake up about how harmful screens can be for children and for adults. It's still considered a little bit weird and countercultural to limit your children's screen time. In fact, the argument that I hear most often is people will come up and they will say that, oh my goodness, you're limiting screen time so much, your kids are just going to totally binge and go crazy once they leave your house. Or your kids are going to grow up and not know how to use technology at all. Well, first off, I want to say, if you see something is adversely affecting your family, like junk food, you're not going to give it to your kids just because they're going to eat it anyways when they're older. I myself grew up with very little screen time. There were many times where my family did not even have a television. And while there were definitely times, and there have been times as an adult, where I have overused screens, that memory of what it is to be without screens, how much better I could focus, how much more emotionally healthy I was, really has inspired me to do this for my family and to not overuse screens. It's also given me the confidence to know that boredom is okay. I remember once when I was maybe 13 years old and I was wandering around the house. It was a cold day. I had nothing to do. And I had read all the kids' books in the house. And I came across the book Jane Eyre. And it had always looked really boring to me, possibly because of the cover and the title. But I picked it up and started reading it. And it quickly became one of my favorite books. And I was so surprised I could not put it down. Now, this is a classic piece of literature that most of us are forced to read in high school. But a lot of times when you are bored, when you have nothing else to do, when our kids are bored, they will rise to the occasion and accomplish things that we didn't think they could accomplish, or do things that we didn't think that they would be interested in. As far as not knowing how to deal with technology, there are plenty of older people out there who did not have technology growing up and have figured out how to use it and have very successful businesses or jobs. In my opinion, the benefits of limiting screen time far outweigh any disadvantages. And if you're someone who's not afraid to go against the grain and wants to raise a family that's emotionally and physically healthy, please consider subscribing to my channel, where I talk about raising our large family with a simple, healthy lifestyle on a budget.